The metal bars were cold against Park Ji-ho's back. He sat on the dirty floor of his cell, staring at the stone walls that trapped him. 3 days had passed since the Vorthok soldiers captured him. 3 days since everything went wrong. Ji-ho was an engineer. He fixed things. He built things. He was not supposed to be here, locked up like an animal. He was supposed to be back on Earth, working on spaceship engines in his quiet workshop. But the human government needed engineers for the peace mission. To the Vorthok Empire, they said it would be safe. They said it would help end the war. They were wrong. The cell was small and dark. A tiny window near the ceiling let in just enough light to see. The walls were made of black stone, worn smooth by countless prisoners who had touched them before. In the corner was a bucket for waste. Next to it was a thin mattress that smelled like fear and sweat. Ji-ho was not alone. Across from him sat the biggest alien he had ever seen. The creature was almost 3 meters tall, even while sitting. Skin was dark purple, covered in scales that looked like armor. 4 arms hung at its sides, each one thick with muscle. Its head was shaped like a lizard's, with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. This was a Vorthok warrior, the enemy. For 2 days, neither of them had spoken. They just watched each other, waiting. Ji-ho did not know what the alien was thinking. Maybe it wanted to kill him. Maybe it was planning to escape. Maybe it was just as scared as he was. On the 3rd morning, guards brought food. They threw 2 bowls through the bars and walked away without a word. The bowls contained something that looked like gray soup. It smelled bad, but Ji-ho was hungry. He had not eaten much since his capture. He picked up his bowl and took a small sip. It tasted worse than it smelled, but it was food. He needed to stay strong if he wanted to survive. The Vorthok warrior picked up his bowl too, but instead of drinking, he pushed it across the floor toward Ji-ho. "You need it more than I do, human," the alien said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. But he spoke perfect English. Ji-ho stared at the bowl, then at the alien. "Why?" he asked. "You are small, weak. You will die if you do not eat. I thought you wanted me dead." The Vorthok warrior tilted his head. "My name is Vek. I am a prisoner here, just like you." "We are not enemies in this place," Ji-ho hesitated. Could be a trick, but the alien's yellow eyes did not look cruel. They looked tired, sad even. "I am Park Ji-ho," he said finally. He took the 2nd bowl, but only drank half of it. Then he pushed it back. "We can share." Dekvar made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are strange, human. Most of your kind would take all the food and leave me hungry. Most of your kind would have killed me by now," Ji-ho replied. "True." Dekvar drank from the bowl. "But I am not like most of my kind. That is why I am here." They began to talk. Dekvar told Ji-ho about his homeworld, a planet covered in red deserts and crystal cities. He spoke of great hunts in the wilderness and festivals under 3 moons. His people were warriors, he said. They lived for battle and died for honor. Ji-ho told Dekvar about Earth, about blue oceans and green forests, about cities full of lights, and machines that could think, about his workshop where he built engines for spaceships, about his dream of exploring the stars in peace, not war. "Why are you here?" Ji-ho asked, as the sun began to set outside their tiny window. Dekvar was quiet. For a long time, when he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. "I was a soldier in the Vorthok fleet. My unit was ordered to attack a human colony ship. It was full of families, children. They were not soldiers, they were just trying to find a new home." Ji paused, staring at his 4 hands. "My commander ordered us to kill them all, to leave no survivors. I refused. I said it was not honorable to kill those who could not fight back. So I was arrested, brought here to die in the arena." "The arena?" Ji-ho asked. "You do not know? This is not just a prison, human. This is a gladiator camp. We fight for the entertainment of our captors. We fight until we die." Cold fear ran down Ji-ho's spine. "How long do prisoners usually live?" "Most die in their first fight. A few last weeks. The best fighters might live for months." Dekvar looked at Ji-ho with something that might have been pity. Humans are not built for gladiator combat. You will probably die quickly. Thanks for the encouragement, Jiho said, trying to sound braver than he felt. I do not say this to be cruel. I say it so you can prepare. Maybe find peace before the end. They sat in silence as darkness filled their cell. Somewhere in the distance, Jiho could hear the sounds of other prisoners. Some were crying, others were praying in languages he did not understand. A few were screaming. Tell me about your father, Jiho said suddenly. He did not know why he asked. Maybe he just wanted to think about something other than dying. Dekvar's eyes seemed to brighten in the darkness. My father was Commander Velthik, of the 3rd Battle Fleet. He was the greatest warrior I ever knew. Strong, brave, honorable. He taught me that true strength comes not from how many enemies you kill, but from knowing when not to kill at all. He sounds wise. He was also executed for showing mercy to human prisoners, just as I was arrested for the same thing. It seems mercy runs in my family. And mercy is considered weakness among my people, not among mine, Jiho said quietly. No, I am beginning to understand that. Dekvar shifted on his mattress. My father left me something before he died. A sword that has been in our family for generations. It is locked away in the warden's trophy room now, but someday I will hold it again. What makes it special? Gary's. The honor of all who wielded it before. When I hold that sword, I carry my father's strength with me. As the night grew deeper, both prisoners tried to sleep. But sleep did not come easily in this place of fear and death. Tomorrow would bring new horrors. Tomorrow would bring them closer to the arena, but tonight, in the darkness of their shared cell, Human and a Vorthok had found something unexpected. They had found friendship. The morning came too soon. Heavy footsteps echoed through the prison halls as guards moved from cell to cell.
Metal doors clanged open.
Prisoners were dragged from their sleep. Get up, meet a guard, shouted at Jiho and Dekvar. The guard was a Vorthok too, but smaller than Dekvar. His armor was black and covered in spikes. Today you fight, today you die. Jiho's hands were shaking as he stood up. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw himself being torn apart by some monster in the arena. But Dekvar looked calm. It's almost peaceful. Remember what I told you? Dekvar whispered as the guards put chains on their wrists. Use your mind. Humans are clever. Use that. They were pushed down long stone corridors with dozens of other prisoners. Jiho saw aliens of many different species. Some looked like giant insects. Others had tentacles instead of arms. A few looked almost human, but with strange colored skin or extra eyes. Near the end of the line, Jiho spotted something that made his heart jump. A human woman with short black hair was walking with the female prisoners. She was wearing the same dirty prison clothes as everyone else, but she held her head high. She looked strong, Hanajiho whispered to himself. He recognized her from the peace mission. She was a pilot, one of the best in the human fleet. She was alive. Maybe others had survived too. Their eyes met for just a moment. Hannah gave him a tiny nod. Then the guards separated the male and female prisoners into different areas. The arena was bigger than Jiho had imagined. It was a huge circle of sand surrounded by stone walls that rose up like a bowl. Thousands of Vorthok spectators sat in. The seats above, cheering and shouting. The noise was deafening. In the center of the arena were racks of weapons. Swords, spears, clubs, and things Jiho did not recognize. Most looked old and broken. This was not about giving prisoners a fair chance. This was about watching them struggle and die. First fight. A voice boomed across the arena. The human against the scare. Jiho's blood turned to ice. A gate opened on the other side of the arena. Out came a creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a spider. It had 8 legs, each one ending in sharp claws. Its mouth was full of teeth as long as Jiho's fingers. The crowd went wild. They wanted to see the small human get torn apart. Jiho walked to the weapon rack on unsteady legs. His engineering mind was working fast, looking at each weapon, thinking about leverage. In physics, he grabbed a spear and a small shield. The spear was too long for him to use normally, but maybe ... The scare charged at him with a roar that shook the arena. Jiho ran to the side, not toward the creature, but toward the arena wall. The scare followed, just as he hoped, at the last second. Jiho planted the spear in the sand and used it like a pole vault. He flew up and over the confused creature, landing behind it. While the scare was turning around, Jiho grabbed a handful of sand and threw it in the creature's eyes. The crowd was booing now. This was not the quick death they expected. The scare swung blindly with its claws, but Jiho was already moving. Had noticed something about the creature's legs? They were strong, but the joints looked weak. He picked up a heavy club and swung it hard at the scar's front leg. The joint cracked. The creature screamed and fell to one side. Jiho hit another leg, then another. Soon, the scare could not stand. It was helpless. The crowd expected Jiho to kill it now. That was how the games worked. But Jiho threw down his weapon and stepped back. The scare was no longer a threat. Killing it would be murder. Finish it. The crowd screamed, "Kill, kill, kill." But Jiho shook his head, looked up at the stands and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "I am not a killer. I'm an engineer. I solve problems." This problem is solved. The crowd was confused. Some were angry. Others seemed curious about this strange human who would not kill. Guards came to drag the wounded scare away. It would live, but it would never fight again. As they carried it past, Jiho, the creature, looked at him with something like gratitude in its eyes. "Interesting," said a voice from above. Jiho looked up to see a Vorthok in golden armor sitting in the best seat. This had to be Warden Cross, the one who ran this place. The human shows mercy. How ... unusual. But the next fight was Thexfar's turn. His opponent was another Vorthok warrior, but this one was bigger and covered in scars. The crowd loved Thexfar. He was one of their own kind, even if he was a prisoner. Thexfar fought like a master. He moved with grace and power, his forearms working together like a deadly dance. But he was holding back. Jiho could see it. Thexfar could have killed his opponent quickly, but he was being careful not to cause permanent harm. When the other warrior fell, Thexfar stood over him with a sword at his throat. The crowd wanted blood. But then Var looked at Jiho and nodded. Then he threw down his weapon. "I yield to a worthy opponent then," Var announced. "He fought with honor. He deserves to live." The crowd was not happy. 2 fights, 2 prisoners who would not kill? This was not what they paid to see. Warden Cross stood up in his golden armor. "Take them back to their cells," he ordered. "We will speak about this later." As they were led away, Jiho caught another glimpse of Hannah. She was being prepared for a fight in the women's section. But she made a gesture with her hands that Jiho recognized. It was pilot's sign language used when radio communication was impossible. "Plan," she signed quickly. "Escape. Trust me." Then she was gone, led toward her own battle. Back in their cell, Thexfar was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "You did well today, Jiho. You showed them that humans can be more than they expected. You did the same thing. Could have killed that warrior easily. My father taught me that true strength is knowing when not to use your power." Today, we both honored his memory, but Jiho was worried. The warden did not look happy. "What happens to prisoners who will not kill?" Thexfar's yellow eyes grew dark. "They make the fights harder. They force us into situations where we must kill or die. And if we still refuse..." "What?" "They make us fight each other. Friend against friend. That is how they break us." Outside their cell, they could hear the roar of the crowd as more fights continued. Somewhere in that noise, Hannah was fighting for her life. Other humans were dying or being forced to kill. "We need to get out of here," Jiho said.
Yes, Thexfar.
Agreed. But first, we need to stay alive long enough to find a way. As night fell over the prison, both warriors knew that their real test was just beginning. They'd made enemies today by showing mercy. Tomorrow, those enemies would try to break them. But they had also made something else. They had made a statement. They had shown that honor could exist even in this place of death. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. 3 days passed after their first fights. Jiho and Dekvar were kept in their cell while other prisoners fought and died in the arena. The guards brought less food now. They wanted to weaken the prisoners who would not kill. They are planning something, Dekvar said as he shared his small portion of water with Jiho. The warden is angry. He does not like prisoners who show mercy. Jiho nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. Through their tiny window, he could hear the crowd, cheering for blood every day. But their cheers sounded different now, less excited. Word was spreading about the human and the Vorthok who refused to kill. On the fourth morning, Warden Cross himself came to their cell. His golden armor gleamed in the dim light. Behind him stood 6 guards with electric spears. "Prisoner Vek," the warden said in a voice like cold metal, "you have disappointed me. You were once a warrior. Now you act like a weak child." Dekvar stood up slowly. Even chained, he looked dangerous. "I act with honor, warden. Something you have forgotten." Cross laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. "Honor? Honor does not fill the seats in my arena. Honor does not make the crowd cheer. Blood makes them cheer. Death makes them happy." "Then you give them death," Dekvar replied. "But you will not make me a murderer." The warden's eyes grew cold. "We shall see about that." He turned to his guards. "Tonight, Dekvar fights 3 champions at once. If he wins without killing any of them, then tomorrow he fights 6 champions, then 12. We will keep adding opponents until he learns to kill or dies trying." Jiho felt sick. "That's not fair. No one can fight that many opponents. Fair." Cross looked at Jiho like he was an insect. "This is not about fair, human. This is about teaching lessons.
No.
Your friend will learn to kill or he will die. Way, the crowd will be entertained." After the warden left, Dekvar sat down heavily. For the first time since Jiho had known him, the big warrior looked defeated. "I cannot fight 3 champions and keep them all alive," Dekvar said quietly. "They are too skilled, too strong. I have to choose between my honor and my life." "There has to be another way," Jiho said. "Maybe if we know." Dekvar shook his head. "This is my burden. You should not suffer for my choices." But Jiho was already thinking. His engineer's mind was working on the problem like it was a machine that needed fixing. There had to be a solution. There always was. "What if you had better weapons?" Jiho asked. "The arena weapons are old and broken. What if you had something better? The only good weapon in this place is my father's sword. But it is locked in the warden's trophy room. I will never see it again." Jiho was quiet for a moment, then he smiled.
Ow.
"Maybe you will see it sooner than you think." That afternoon, while Dekvar was taken away to prepare for his fight, Jiho made a request to the guards. He wanted to speak with Warden Cross. He had information the warden would want to hear. The guards laughed at first. But when Jiho kept insisting, they finally brought him to the warden's office. The office was filled with trophies from dead gladiators, weapons, armor, and personal items from warriors who had died in the arena. In the center of the room, on a special stand, was a beautiful sword. Its blade seemed to glow with inner light, and its handle was carved with symbols that looked like they told a story. "Ah, you admire Commander Velthic's sword," Cross said from behind his desk. "It is my finest trophy. I took it from his body after I executed him myself." Jiho tried to hide his anger. "It is beautiful, but I did not come here to look at weapons. Then why are you here, human?" "I want to make a deal." Cross raised an eyebrow. "What kind of deal?" "Let me fight alongside Vefar tonight. 2 against 3 is better than 1 against 3. And what do I get from this arrangement?" Jiho took a deep breath. "If we lose, you get to watch both of us die. The crowd will love it. But if we win, I will tell you something valuable. Something about human military codes." It was a lie, but Cross did not know that. The warden thought for a long moment, then smiled. "Very well, you will fight together. But I will make it more interesting. If you both survive, you may choose 1 weapon from my trophy room as a prize. But if either of you dies, the survivor. We'll fight again tomorrow against 6 champions." Jiho nodded. "Deal." That evening, the arena was packed. Word had spread that the human and the Vorthok would fight together. The crowd wanted to see if their mercy would make them weak. Jiho and Thekvar stood in the center of the sand. Across from them were three of the prison's best fighters. A huge reptile creature with poisonous claws, a warrior made of living rock who could not feel pain, a Vorthok champion who had never lost a fight. "Are you ready, my friend?" Thekvar asked. "No," Jiho said honestly. "But let's do this anyway." The fight began. The rock creature charged straight at them. Jiho dove to one side while Thekvar used all four arms to grab the creature and throw it into the arena wall. Rocks flew everywhere as it crashed. The reptile tried to poison Jiho with its claws, but Jiho used his shield to block and his spear. To keep it at a distance, he did not try to kill it. Instead, he tired it out, making it attack again and again until it was too exhausted to fight. Meanwhile, Thekvar faced the Vorthok champion. They fought with skill and grace, but Thekvar was still holding back. He could not bring himself to kill another of his own kind. The champion noticed this and began to get angry. "Fight me properly," he shouted. "Stop treating me like a child." "I treat you with respect," Thekvar replied, dodging a sword thrust. "I will not kill you just to please a crowd." The fight went on for almost an hour. Both warriors were bleeding and tired. Finally, the Gavar managed to disarm the champion and pin him to the ground, Gavar said. The champion looked up at him with respect. "I yield to a better warrior." The crowd was quiet. They had expected blood and death. Instead, they had seen skill and honor. Warden Cross stood up in his golden armor. His face was red with anger. "You have one?" he said through gritted teeth. "Choose your prize." Thekvar walked slowly to the trophy room. When he came back, he was carrying his father's sword. The blade hummed with energy and the symbols on the handle seemed to glow. "This sword belonged to my father," Thekvar said. Holding it up for all to see, he was a warrior of honor. Today his memory lives on. But as they were being led back to their cell, Jiho noticed something strange. The sword's handle had a small panel that looked like it could open. There were tiny lights blinking on it. "Detsavar," he whispered. "I think your father's sword has secrets." That night, in the darkness of their cell, they examined the sword more closely. When Thekvar pressed the right symbols, the panel opened. Inside was a small data device. As they looked at the information on the device, both warriors realized that this sword was more than just a weapon. It was the key to something much bigger, something that could change everything. The data device in Thekvar's father's sword contained more information than Jiho had ever seen. Maps of the prison, guard schedules, locations of weapon storage rooms. Most important of all, the location of a secret prison camp where human soldiers were being held. "Your father was planning an escape," Jiho whispered as they studied the tiny screen in their dark cell. "He mapped everything. He always said knowledge was the greatest weapon," Thekvar replied. "It must have been." Gathering this information before they caught him, the data showed that Captain Lee Minho, Jiho's commanding officer from the peace mission, was alive. He was being held in a prison camp on the other side of the planet, along with dozens of other human soldiers. "We have to get this information," Tuhana, Jiho said. "If she is planning an escape, this will help." "How?" "We are locked in here, and the guards watch us closely." Jiho smiled. "I have an idea. But first we need to talk to the other prisoners." The next morning, when the guards brought their food, Jiho pretended to be sick. He fell to the floor, holding his stomach and making painful noises. The guards opened the cell to check on him, while they were distracted. Thekvar used his quick hands to steal a key from one of the guards' belts. The guards never noticed. That afternoon, during the gladiator games, most of the guards went to watch the fights. Ho and Thekvar used the stolen key to open their cell. They moved quietly through the prison corridors, using the maps from the sword to avoid patrols. They found Hannah in the women's section of the prison. She was in a cell with Yuki, a human medic who had also been captured during the peace mission. Both women looked tired but strong. "Jiho," Hannah whispered when she saw him. "How did you get out?" "Long story," Jiho replied. "But we have something that will help us all escape." He showed them the data device. Hannah's eyes grew wide as she saw the prison maps and guard schedules. "Oh, this is incredible," she said. "I have been watching the guards for days trying to figure out their patterns. This shows everything." "There is more," Dekvar said. "It shows the location of the main computer room. If we can get there, we can shut down the prison's security systems." Yuki, the medic, had been quiet until now. "What about the other prisoners? We cannot just leave them here to die." "We will not," Jeho said. "The plan is to free everyone during the next big gladiator event. When all the guards are watching the games, we make our move." They spent the next hour planning. Hannah would gather weapons from the storage rooms. Yuki would prepare medical supplies for the wounded. Dekvar would lead a group to the computer room. Jeho would use his engineering skills to sabotage the prison's power systems. "What about getting off the planet?" Hannah asked. "Even if we escape the prison, we are still trapped on this world." Dekvar smiled. "My father's data shows the location of the guard's spaceship hangar. There are several ships there. You can fly them, yes?" "I can fly anything with engines," Hannah said confidently. They returned to their cells before the guards came back from the games. For the next 3 days, they prepared in secret. Jeho created small tools from scraps of metal. Hannah gathered information about which prisoners could fight and which needed help. Dekvar practiced with his father's sword, learning to use its hidden features. The sword was more than just a weapon. It had a small computer built into the handle that could hack into Vorthok's security systems. Commander Velthik had been planning something big before his death. On the night of the escape, the arena was packed for a special event. The warden had arranged fights between prisoners from different species. The crowd was excited and loud. Perfect cover for their plan, Gho started by cutting the power to the prison's communication systems. Using tools he had made, he rewired control panels and overloaded circuits. Soon, the guards could not talk to each other or call for help. Meanwhile, Dekvar and a group of alien prisoners fought their way to the computer room. The sword's computer system helped him break through electronic locks and disable security cameras. Within minutes, all the cell doors in the prison opened automatically. Hannah led a team to the weapons storage rooms. They armed the prisoners with everything they could find: swords, spears, energy guns, and armor. The prisoners had been treated like animals for too long. Now they were ready to fight back. The guards realized something was wrong when the lights started going out all over the prison. But by then, it was too late. Hundreds of angry prisoners were already free and looking for revenge. The battle was fierce but short. The guards were outnumbered 10-1. Many of them ran away instead of fighting. Others threw down their weapons and surrendered. Warden Cross tried to escape in his personal ship, but Hannah had already sabotaged it. The engines exploded as soon as he started them. He survived, but barely. "This is not over, human," he screamed at Jeho as prisoners dragged him away. "The Empire will hunt you down." "Let them try," Jeho replied. He was holding Nekvar's sword now. The big warrior had been wounded in the fighting, but he would live. "We are not afraid anymore." Yuki worked quickly to treat the wounded prisoners. Many had been hurt in the fighting, but most would survive. The alien prisoners who had been enemies before now worked together to help each other. "Where do we go now?" asked one of the freed prisoners, a reptile creature who had become friends with Jeho during their time in the cells. Jeho looked at the data device. "First, we rescue the humans from the secret prison camp. Then we find a way to get everyone home. The Vorthok fleet will come looking for us," the Sekvar warned. "We do not have much time. We better move fast," Hannah said. She was already checking the captured spaceships. "I found 3 ships that can fly. Not pretty, but they will get us where we need to go." As they prepared to leave the prison behind, Jeho looked back at the arena where he had first learned to fight for his life. So much had changed since then. He had come here as a simple engineer. Now he was a leader, helping to free not just humans, but aliens from many different worlds. The sword in his hands felt heavy with responsibility. It had belonged to a warrior who believed in honor and mercy. Now it was his job to carry on that Legacy? Ready? Thekvar asked. Despite his wounds, the big warrior was smiling. Ready, Jiho replied. Together, they walked toward the ships that would carry them to their next adventure. Behind them, the prison burned. Ahead of them, somewhere. Among the stars, their friends were waiting to be rescued. The real fight was just beginning. The 3 stolen ships flew through space toward the secret prison camp. Jiho sat in the pilot's seat next to Hannah, watching the stars pass by. In his hands, he held Thekvar's father's sword. The weapon felt different now, lighter somehow. As if it approved of what they were doing, how much further? Asked Yuki from the back of the ship. She was checking medical supplies they had taken from the prison. 2 hours, Hannah replied, reading the navigation system. The camp is hidden on a moon behind the gas giant. Thekvar was resting in the corner, his wounds bandaged, but healing. My father's data shows there are 300 human prisoners. In that camp? They have been there for almost a year. Jiho felt anger rising in his chest. A year? Captain Lee Minho and the others had been suffering for a whole year while the war continued. But soon that would end. What about guards? Jiho asked. 50, maybe 60, Thekvar said. But they will not be expecting an attack. The camp is supposed to be secret. The plan was simple. Ito would pilot the main ship and land near the camp's power station. Jiho would use his engineering skills to shut down the force fields that kept the prisoners trapped. Thekvar would lead the attack on the guard towers. Yuki would set up a medical station for the rescued prisoners. When they reached the moon, everything looked quiet. Too quiet. Something is wrong, Hannah said as she landed the ship. There are no guards outside, no patrols. Jiho activated the sword scanner. The computer showed life signs inside the camp, but they were weak. The prisoners are alive, but barely. I think they are being starved. They moved quickly through the camp. The few guards they found were not expecting trouble. Most surrendered without a fight when they saw the Thekvar and his father's glowing sword. The prison cells were horrible. Hundreds of human soldiers lay on dirty floors, too weak to stand. They had been given just enough food to stay alive, but nothing more. Captain Lee, Jiho called, as he found his commanding officer. The captain looked old and thin, but his eyes were still sharp. Engineer Park? Captain Lee could hardly believe it. How did you find us? Long story, sir, but we are getting you out of here, as they helped the weak prisoners to the ships. Jiho noticed something in the camp's computer system. Messages between this camp and other Vorthok bases. The war was not going well for either side. Both humans and Vorthok were tired of fighting. Thekvar, Jiho called. Look at this. The big warrior read the messages on the screen. His face grew sad. My people are suffering too. The war has cost too much. Too many have died. What if we could stop it? Jiho asked. Your father's data shows there are Vorthok commanders who think like you, who believe in honor instead of endless war. Thekvar was quiet for a moment. General Morthic, my cousin. He commands the 4th Fleet. He never liked this war. He follows orders. What if we gave him a reason to stop following those orders? Over the next few hours, they loaded all the rescued prisoners onto their ships. Yuki worked hard to help the sick and wounded. Many were so weak they could barely speak, but they were alive. Captain Lee, though weak, was still a leader. What is our plan now, Engineer Park? He asked. We are going to end this war, sir. With 3 stolen ships and a few hundred sick prisoners. Jiho held up the sword. With this, and with help from Honorable Vorthok, who are tired of killing, using the sword's communication system, they sent a message to General Morthic. Thekvar spoke in his own language, telling his cousin about their father's sword and the humans, who had shown mercy in the arena. The general's response came quickly. He wanted to meet. They arranged to meet at a neutral space station between human and Vorthok territory. It was dangerous. Either side could call it a trap. But Jiho believed it was worth the risk. The meeting took place in a small room on the space station. General Morthic looked like an older version of Thekvar, but with more scars and sadder eyes. With him came 3 other Vorthok commanders who were tired of war. On the human side, Captain Lee represented the human fleet. Even though he was still recovering from his imprisonment, "My cousin tells me you fought with honor in the arena," General Morthic said to Jiho, "and that you carry our father's sword." "I carry it with respect," Jiho replied. "Your father believed that strength comes from knowing when not to fight. I believe the same thing. The war has gone on too long," the general said. "Too many good warriors have died on both sides. But I cannot just stop fighting. My superiors would execute me." "What if you had proof that peace was possible, Captain?" Lee asked. "What if you could show them that humans and Vorthok can work together?" Jiho stood up and offered the sword to General Morthok. "This belonged to your brother. It should stay in your family." The general stared at the sword, then at Jiho. "Would give up such a valuable weapon? It is not mine to keep. Besides, it means more as a symbol of peace than as a weapon of war." General Morthic took the sword with reverence. "You honor my family, human. Perhaps. Perhaps there is hope for our peoples after all." The peace talks took 3 days. There were arguments and disagreements. Some commanders on both sides wanted to keep fighting, but slowly agreements were reached. The war would end with a ceasefire. Prisoners would be exchanged. Sword between the species would begin. Most importantly, Jiho and Nekvar would lead a new organization to help different species understand each other. 6 months later, Jiho stood on the bridge of the human ship Unity, outside the windows. He could see Vorthok and human ships flying together on patrol. The peace was still fragile, but it was holding. Hannah was his second in command now, helping to train mixed crews of humans and Vorthok. Captain Lee had recovered and was working with General Morthok to plan joint military exercises. "Any regrets?" Nekvar asked as he joined Jiho on the bridge. The big warrior wore the uniform of the new Peace Corps, with his father's sword at his side. "None," Jiho replied. "We did something good. My father would be proud. His sword helped end a war instead of fight one." In the ship's memorial room, there was a display case with pictures of all the warriors who had died in the arena. Father Commander Velthic had a place of honor. Below his picture were the words he had lived by. "True strength comes from knowing when not to fight." The sword that had once belonged to a Vorthok commander was now a symbol of peace between the stars. And the human engineer who had carried it had learned that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from winning a battle, but from refusing to fight one. Jiho looked out at the stars and smiled. There was still much work to do. Peace was never easy to keep. But for the first time in years, the galaxy felt hopeful. The legacy of honor lived on.